Okay, real quick, I need you to think about something dark. Right now, in the modern world, if someone kills multiple people, we know exactly what happens. Police investigate, detectives gather evidence, courts hold trials, lawyers argue, judges sentence, prisons lock them away. The whole system exists specifically to catch them, judge them, and remove them from society permanently. But here's the question nobody ever asks. What happened before any of that existed? What happened 50,000 years ago when there were no police, no courts, no prisons, no laws, no judges, no forensics, no fingerprints, no DNA? What did a small tribe of 30 people do when one of their own started killing? And here's the part that will genuinely keep you up tonight. They did something. They absolutely did something. And what they did tells us more about the true nature of human justice than anything our modern legal system has ever produced. Let's go. Alright, first things first. Because I already know some of you are skeptical. You're thinking serial killers are a modern phenomenon. Ancient humans were too busy surviving to have serial killers. Wrong. Completely wrong. Let me be very clear about something. The psychological profile of a serial killer, the specific combination of traits that creates one, empathy deficits, predatory behavior, compulsive violence has been present in human populations for as long as humans have existed. It is not a product of modern society. It is not caused by video games or violent movies or broken homes or social media. Those are modern excuses for an ancient problem. Evolutionary psychologists have identified what they call the dark triad of personality traits: narcissism, Machiavellianism, and psychopathy. And these traits have existed in human populations at roughly the same rate throughout all of human history, approximately 1 to 4% of any given population. Which means in a tribe of 30 people, statistically at least one person had the psychological profile capable of becoming a killer. And unlike today, where a serial killer can hide in a city of millions, ancient tribes were tiny. 30 people, everyone knew, everyone. There was nowhere to hide. So what happened? Here is what makes ancient justice so completely different from modern justice. And this is the part that nobody talks about. Modern justice is slow. Deliberately, intentionally, beautifully slow. We built an entire system designed to slow down the process of punishing someone. Evidence, witnesses, trials, appeals, years of legal proceedings before anything happens, and we built it that way for a very good reason. Because fast justice is often wrong justice, but ancient humans didn't have that problem. Or, more accurately, they didn't have that luxury. In a tribe of 30 people, there is no mystery. Everyone sees everything. Everyone knows everyone. When someone starts killing, there is no investigation needed. Everyone already knows who did it. They watched it happen. They know the killer's face. They know his history. They know his patterns. And they know exactly what will happen next if they do nothing. Ancient justice wasn't slow. It was immediate. It was communal. And it was almost always permanent. So let's talk about what ancient humans actually did. Because researchers, anthropologists, and evolutionary biologists have pieced together a remarkably clear picture of how prehistoric communities handled dangerous individuals. And the answer involves three very distinct approaches depending on the nature of the killer and the culture of the tribe. Approach number 1. Ostracism. The social death sentence. This was the first tool ancient tribes used. And it was devastating. In the prehistoric world, being removed from your tribe wasn't just an inconvenience, it was essentially a death sentence. Alone, without a group, a single human had almost no chance of surviving in the wild. No one to hunt with. No one to share food. No one to protect you at night. No fire, no shelter, no warmth. Anthropologists studying modern hunter-gatherer tribes, the closest living examples we have to our ancient ancestors, consistently document a practice they call ostracism, or social exclusion. When a member of the tribe becomes too dangerous, too disruptive, or too violent, the community doesn't argue or negotiate. They stop. They stop talking to the person. They stop sharing food. They stop making eye contact. They stop acknowledging their existence. In a world where every human survival depended on every other human in the group, being invisible was a kind of slow execution. And it worked because humans are deeply biologically wired to need social connection. The psychological pain of ostracism activates the same neural pathways as physical pain. Being excluded literally hurts in the same way that being hit hurts. For most people, total social exclusion was enough to correct behavior. But for someone with the psychological profile of a true killer, someone who genuinely lacked empathy and felt no connection to others, ostracism had a different effect. It removed the social restraints on their behavior entirely, which led directly to approach number 2. Approach number 2. Community execution. This is the one that surprises people, because we tend to think of execution as something governments do, something courts authorize, something professional executioners carry out in controlled environments. But in the prehistoric world, there was no government, there was no court, there was no professional executioner, there was only the tribe. And when a member of the tribe became too dangerous to live alongside, when ostracism had failed, when the warnings had been ignored, when another killing had happened, the tribe made a collective decision, together, not one person, not a leader, together. And they acted on that decision together. Anthropologists call this altruistic punishment, the willingness of a group to collectively punish a dangerous individual even at personal cost to the punishers. And the evidence for this practice goes back tens of thousands of years. Researchers have found prehistoric burial sites where individuals showed clear signs of violent death. Not the kind of violence from warfare with other tribes, not the kind from animal attacks, but the specific pattern of injuries consistent with multiple attackers, multiple weapons, multiple people acting together against one person. These weren't accidents, these weren't battles, these were organized, deliberate, collective acts of community self-defense. And the most remarkable thing about them is who participated. In several of these prehistoric cases, researchers found evidence suggesting that even close relatives of the dangerous individual participated in the community execution, not because they were forced to, but because the survival of the group was more important than the protection of one dangerous individual. Even if that individual was family, the tribe came first, always. Now here is where it gets philosophically fascinating, because modern criminology has spent enormous energy trying to understand what creates a serial killer? What combination of genetics and environment and trauma and circumstance produces a person capable of killing repeatedly without remorse? And the answer, the real answer, is complicated and contested and fills thousands of research papers. But ancient humans didn't have research papers. They had something more powerful. They had observation. Ancient humans were extraordinarily good observers of human behavior because their survival depended on it. Reading people, reading intentions, reading danger was as essential as hunting and gathering. And what anthropologists have discovered is that ancient communities often identified dangerous individuals before they killed. Not through supernatural intuition, not through magic or prophecy, through pattern recognition. The same person who tortured animals as a child, the same person who showed no remorse after accidentally hurting someone, the same person who responded to conflict with disproportionate violence, the same person whose eyes didn't change when they smiled. Ancient humans noticed, and they acted on what they noticed, not after a killing spree but before one. Approach number 3. Integration and management. This one is the most surprising, because not every ancient tribe that encountered a potentially dangerous individual chose exclusion or elimination. Some chose something far more sophisticated: management, control, integration with boundaries. Anthropologists studying hunter-gatherer societies have documented something remarkable. In some communities, individuals who showed signs of dangerous personality traits were given specific roles within the tribe. Roles that channeled their aggression, their fearlessness, their willingness to cause harm in a useful direction. The person who felt no fear and no remorse about violence became the tribe's primary hunter, or the tribe's defender against external threats, or the person sent to deliver warnings to rival groups. Their darkness was redirected. Their dangerous traits were made useful. And this is not as unusual as it sounds. Evolutionary psychologists argue that many of the traits we associate with psychopathy, fearlessness, ruthlessness, the ability to act without emotional interference, were genuinely adaptive in prehistoric environments. A tribe that had someone capable of killing a large animal without hesitation or confronting an enemy without freezing from fear had a real survival advantage. The same traits that make someone dangerous in a peaceful modern society made someone valuable in a world where violence was constant and necessary. Ancient tribes were pragmatic in a way modern societies cannot afford to be. They asked not just is this person dangerous, but can this danger be made useful? But what happened when management failed? When the dangerous individual couldn't be redirected? When the killing continued despite ostracism, despite warnings, despite every attempt to integrate them? When the tribe finally ran out of options? This is where ancient justice becomes most interesting. and most brutal. Because ancient communities had no prisons. None. The concept of long-term incarceration simply didn't exist. You cannot imprison someone when you're moving from place to place following game migrations. You cannot build a jail when your entire settlement is temporary. You cannot post guards for years when every adult in the tribe is needed for survival. The options were binary. Remove the threat, or become a victim of it. And when a community finally made the decision that removal was necessary, they moved with a speed and a unanimity that modern legal systems cannot match and would never want to. Because they couldn't afford to be wrong about delay. Every day a dangerous individual remained in the group was another day someone might not survive. There was no appeals process. There was no stay of execution. There was a community decision made by everyone who would be affected by that decision. And then there was action. Now let's talk about something that modern criminologists have only recently begun to appreciate. The role of reputation in ancient human communities. In a tribe of 30 people, your reputation was everything. It was your currency. It was your protection. It was your identity. And it followed you everywhere because everywhere was the same 30 people. For most people, the knowledge that violent behavior would destroy their reputation, remove their access to food, remove their access to partnership, remove their access to the social bonds that made survival possible was enough. The social consequences of violence were immediate, total, and impossible to escape. There was no moving to another city. There was no starting over somewhere no one knew you. You were known, completely, thoroughly, permanently known. And this created a kind of natural deterrent to antisocial violence that modern criminologists find remarkably effective. The certainty of social consequences, not the severity, but the certainty, is one of the most powerful deterrents to violent behavior ever identified by researchers. In ancient tribes, that certainty was absolute. Everyone knew, everyone saw, everyone remembered, and everyone responded. Together. So what can we actually learn from all of this? What does ancient human justice tell us about ourselves? About the nature of violence? About the nature of community? About the nature of justice itself? Here's what I think the evidence actually shows. First, humans have always had to deal with dangerous individuals among them. This is not a modern problem. It is not a product of civilization or urbanization or inequality or any of the other things we blame. It is a permanent feature of human populations that every human society in history has had to manage in some way. Second, the ancient solutions, ostracism, community accountability, reputation systems, early identification of dangerous behavior, were in many ways more effective than modern solutions, not more humane, not more just by modern standards, but more effective at protecting the community from repeated harm. Third, and this is the uncomfortable one, the thing that made ancient justice work was the thing modern justice has deliberately, intentionally, and rightly abandoned. Certainty without process, speed without deliberation, community action without individual rights. We gave up efficiency for fairness. We traded fast for careful, and that trade was worth making. Because the alternative, a world where communities can quickly and permanently remove anyone they collectively decide is dangerous, is a world where minority groups, where outsiders, where anyone different enough to be feared becomes a target of that same efficient, certain communal justice. The same system that protected ancient tribes from genuine killers could just as easily be turned on the wrong person by a frightened, angry, grieving mob. Modern justice is slow because human judgment is fallible. Modern justice has trials because communities are sometimes wrong. Modern justice has appeals because even careful systems make mistakes. Ancient humans had something we lost and sometimes wish we still had. Certainty, speed, community solidarity in the face of danger. But they lost something we have and they never had. The protection of the individual from the mistakes of the crowd. And maybe, honestly, that is the trade we had to make to build a civilization worth living in. History was weirder than you think. And we were stranger than we like to admit. Subscribe to Oddly Ancient for more history that's darker, weirder, and more fascinating than anything you learned in school. New video every day. See you in the next one.